Hi everybody, my name's David. I was invited here by Josh to talk for a little bit. I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to just speak my mind, and I hope to work with the channel in the future. What I'd like to talk about today is translation, at least in animation. I am trying to get myself into the voice acting field. I really connect with this, in a different sense at least. I noticed that recently there's been a lot of shows that get really scrutinized for how they're translated. One example is the use of sus. Frankly, I don't really care how you translate as long as it makes sense. That's the most important part, is that the translation works. If you as a viewer understand it, the translation did a great job. But the moment that you bastardize it by removing core information or recharacterizing stuff, you're not doing a great job translating. But the one thing people don't get, though, is it's a very, very hard job. It's not as simple, this word means that, and just directly write it across in English. No, there's a lot more complicated, especially with a language like Japanese. I don't have a lot of experience in the language from a translation standpoint, but an analog for that is Korean. I've studied that for a few years. It's not a very intuitive language for an English learner, and it doesn't translate across very easily either. An example is just saying hello in Korean, annyeong, or annyeonghaseyo. The problem there, though, is that it doesn't mean hello. It means, are you in peace? Are you well? It's also used to mean good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a very versatile phrase. It just primarily uses hello because it's the simplest way to get across. And frankly, it made learning hard because it makes translation difficult as well as learning difficult because it's not a very simple one-to-one translation. Nothing is. Because in Korean, you don't have pronouns. You don't have he, she, or they. You're referring to the speaker. The issue is when you're trying to translate certain stuff, like when you're being asked questions, is that you can easily just get by parroting. So if they ask if you like coffee, you just say coffee, and that's considered acceptable. But for English, that's not grammatically okay, and it lacks, our own syntax and structure. And I completely understand where people are coming from when they feel like American slang being used doesn't feel right. But the one thing people are misunderstanding is that American culture, as well as other cultures, have spread pretty far and wide, so slang like sus is not very rare outside of America. And when people get gung-ho about it, they're kind of making the translator's job miserable. They're doing their best to give you the best meaning possible that doesn't compromise too much on what the original dialogue said. I'm not saying you need to learn the language to understand, but it helps to know that very few languages work like English, and it affects your understanding. Not saying that it implies that you learn or you are different, it's just that the way that you understand the world is structured by your language. This is something I learned in my communications classes. Your language affects your ability to process the world. That's why it's important for you to know your language. When you're translating something in Spanish, you gotta remember there's a different order for adjectives, there's a different order for verbs. Same thing for Korean and in Japanese. In Japanese, you have everything but the verb. The verb comes last. In Korean, it's very flexible. It's a very malleable language. You can put the subject there, then you can put another noun here, and you can put a modifier there. But it always has to have the verb at the end, at least for consistency's sake. You don't want to confuse the speaker. And because of how those things may seem small, but they actually make a very fundamental impact on how you were able to interpret information. There's a lot more about it, but I'm speaking too much as it is. But the important part is to understand that there will be some stuff lost in translation, and there will be some stuff added to at least help you get what's coming across. One last thing I'd like to make mention of is regular translators at the UN. They don't translate everything. They get the general idea and adapt it as best as possible for the person that they're talking to or talking for. there's no way you're ever going to get a one-to-one translation for anything. It's just not how languages work. Every meaning may be similar, but they're not quite the same. So you have to work with what you got. Well, at least that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for that, David. And now, this month's featured song, a tune called My Psycho Killer Girlfriend by the Bedbugs, featuring Ralabaxia. Take it away.
Somehow I'm still charmed by her killer.